Hi everybody, this is Hua. We are here to pick up Piquant, Part 3. Parts 1 and 2 can be found in the videos below. And if you have not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Enjoy! As soon as the door across the hall was shut, I turned around and glared at him. He was too good to be true. I knew it. He had the accent, the look, the power. I should have known. Tears stung me as I realized I'd been misled again. When he tried to reach for me, I pulled away from him. "Don't touch me," I snarled. He laughed. "Don't touch you? Honey, we've got a lot of touching up to do. I'll get back to that flimsy note you left me in a bit here, but first, what I want to know is if you are all right." I laughed. "Am I all right? What the hell do you think? I just found out that the man I laid with is the noble heir to England. You lied to me." He stepped forward. "I didn't lie. I said I was on vacation to get a change of scenery. That was the truth. You didn't tell me you were noble. Now I find photos of us plastered all over the tabloids, and they're in there grilling me like I committed a crime, they're talking about this goddamn U.S. break of confidentiality code, whatever the hell that is. What am I going to do?" "Oh, sweetheart, it's real simple what you have to do. There's a way to make all this go away without another peep of scandal to your name." I frowned. "How?" Garrison smiled wickedly and looked me up and down. "Marry me." My eyes flew open. I couldn't believe what I just heard. "Did you just propose?" He nodded. "Yes, I did. You see, my father can get rid of this with a snap of his fingers. He can get it all erased without a moment's thought. But if you don't marry me, that Mr. Stone in there will make sure no job hires you for the rest of your life." The thought scared me to the bones. No job, no money, no life. Fear began to hit hard. But marrying Garrison wasn't the answer. He didn't love me. Look what being married to Jake had done. "I can't marry you. You don't even love me," I whispered. "It can be a marriage of convenience. After this dies down, we can go our separate ways. Trust me, Peyton, if you don't marry me, this battle will never be over. They'll make sure you fry for it and do it in public. But with me, you'll be protected." I started to shake, and he reached for me. When I tried to pull away, he yanked me to him. His eyes told me the truth of what they could do to me, to my life. If I didn't marry him, I would be on the streets for screwing with the government. They would make sure I paid for what I did. But if they considered it a romance, a true romance, where he was going to wed me, it might just work. I may just be saved. "So what do you say?" he asked. When we returned, Garrison sat down next to me and looked at Ben in the eyes. I could tell the men were impatiently waiting for us to speak. The envelope that held our photos was underneath Ben's hands. I wondered how many times he'd seen them. It made me shiver, and Garrison reached for my hand. The motion caused Ben to stand up straighter. "Mr. Stone, you can rest assured that everything is going to be all right. You see, Miss Jones and I needed to get something out of the way," Garrison said. "And what is that?" "Her answer to my proposal." Ben frowned. "What?" "We met, fell in love, and are going to be married. Whatever I discussed with her is now the private affair of our life. She is now the wife of a noble heir to England." Ben's face paled, and he stared at Garrison's father. "Mr. Remington, you can't believe that for a second." Garrison's father turned and stared at me, and then a smile spread across his face. "Why would I not? The woman is beautiful, and my son is a lucky man. I think this meeting is over, gentlemen. If you have any other questions, direct them to me. If you should bother her again, note that I will withdraw all my funds from the U.S. grounds." Garrison stood and helped me up. That's it? I watched as Garrison's father took the envelope from Ben's hands and walked out. Garrison took my hand and led me out as the men stared at me with anger. As soon as we made it out of the room, I burst into tears and was drawn into Garrison's arms. I felt his hand touch my back, and already I felt the comfort I needed. Take her back to the hotel. I'll meet with you two later, his father said as he left. The hotel where Garrison was staying at was in downtown in the penthouse where I would never be able to enter if I didn't have him. It looked like the size of my house. I felt strange as I tried to find some sort of comfort being among his territory. I ordered some room service. It should be here soon. You must be famished, he said. I need to call my mother. She'll be worried sick. They took me this morning without letting me take anything with me. He took off his jacket and smiled at me. The phone is there. I'll give you a moment. He walked off and I sat down, reaching for the phone. I dialed it and it rang once before my mother's voice came on. I burst into tears. Oh my God, Mom. Peyton? Oh, thank the Lord. Are you all right? I sobbed hard and swallowed even harder. I don't know. Where are you? I'm with Garrison. There was a pause. Garrison? What's he doing there? When I got my emotions under control, I told her the story. She listened quietly, and when I was done, she laughed. I told you he was a winner. Mother, I cried as anger shot through me. I'm in deep shit, and all you have to say is that? Well, what do you want me to say? I don't know. How about a little sympathy? Sympathies are for the dying. You're not dying. You're getting yourself hitched to a handsome god. Goodbye, Mother. I slammed the phone and rubbed my head. Well, that went well. I stood up and walked to the window. The top floor was always a sight to see. I barely got to be in top floors. Being married to Jake meant being stuck inside on the bottom. You left me, Garrison said. I turned around as he entered wearing just a t-shirt and his black pants. I backed up until I felt the window against me, and all senses of me disappeared. He walked toward me, slowly, and his dark eyes roamed over me. Flashes of what he could do with those hands entered my mind, and I tried to control my urge to fling myself at him. I came to your bungalow, and you were gone. You left a little note saying nothing about where to find you. We're going to talk about that, he whispered. I cleared my throat. It doesn't matter, Garrison. You found me in the end. Yes, and I'm going to make you mine. I shook my head. I'm beginning to have second thoughts about this whole marriage thing. I want out. He reached me in 3 strides and grabbed my arm. You're not listening to me, sweetheart. You're mine. You're not going anywhere. Wherever you go, I'll be right beside you. We're not married yet. He laughed. Sweetheart, after what we did, you're as good as my wife. I felt my cheeks blush. Clearing my throat, I crossed my arms. Still, I can refuse you. Garrison smiled and released me. You think I'd let you refuse me once we're married? You're going to be my wife, and I'll do what I will. You'd force me? You'd refuse me. I didn't answer him as his eyes sparkled. Turning away, I ran my hands through my hair. This isn't right. We have no love in this relationship. With Jake, who the hell is Jake? I turned around to face him. Well, if we're going to be in this for real, I suggest we start by being honest with each other. All right? Start with Jake. Jake is my ex-husband. I saw him in Jamaica with a pregnant woman. We'd been divorced only a month, which means he was cheating on me. Garrison walked to me and let out a soft breath. I'm sorry. Your turn. What do you want to know? Who took those photos? Some asshole who will now be scrubbing toilet seats for the rest of his life. I told you the truth. My father will make sure of your safety. The thought of those photos made me sit down. I hate those photos. I can't believe they made the front cover. Don't worry, those tabloids are now dead and gone. I shot my head up. How do you know? I was just on the phone with my father while you were talking to your mom. My father has it taken care of. He's also set up an appointment for us to meet with the judge this afternoon. As soon as we're married, we can go meet with him. The sudden news shocked me. Wait, we're getting married this afternoon? He nodded. Yes, I've already ordered a dress for you. How do you know my size? Garrison smiled and his eyes roamed over me. Honey, I'd say I know a lot more than just your body size. I can't marry you this afternoon. He took my hand. Peyton, I know this is very sudden, but to protect you, you have to become my wife. The sooner the better, and I can rest assured that you won't become a target for anyone. If they know that you're married to me, they'll turn away. Like I told you, I have very powerful resources that can eliminate anyone who is a threat to the people I care about. So you care about me? Of course I do. Marriage is a long shot. I've been married. I know what it's like to be tied to someone who doesn't love you. I don't want you hating me in the long run. I don't want to be a regret to anyone. He laughed and walked to me. He reached out a finger and caressed my cheek. And then he bent down and captured my lips quickly. I think being married to you would be my greatest achievement. An hour later, I was staring at myself in the mirror, trying to get myself to be brave. Garrison had dropped me off at home, and the dress he ordered came shortly afterward. My mother had run upstairs with a huge smile bearing it as if it was gold. I felt sick to my stomach, and I wasn't able to move past the thought of being married again. I was supposed to be married to Garrison at City Hall in a little over an hour, and I was beginning to lose my nerves. I couldn't do this. I couldn't marry a man I barely knew. I didn't want to be stuck in a marriage like I did with Jake for another 15 years. Peyton? My mother's voice came from outside the bathroom door. I opened it and stared at her. I can't do this. She came in and hugged me. Honey, you can do this. Think of this as a new way to start a new life. You have to understand that if you don't do this, your life as you know it will be over. You'll be turned away from every job you go to. You need this. It won't be so bad, you'll see. But I'm scared it'll be like it was with Jake. She pulled away. One thing you need to know. Garrison is no Jake. That man will bend over backwards to see that you're pleased. And he will make sure you're safe. Tears began coming down my cheeks. I'm so scared. What did I get myself into? It wasn't your fault. You both were single and had a great time together. Yes, he didn't tell exactly who he was, but now that you know, let it sink in and move on. I dabbed at my eyes and stared at myself in the mirror. Was I noble material? Was I able to carry on a title worthy of such? And what if I was a disappointment to his father? There were so many things I needed to know and make sure before this went through. But Garrison had assured me that all would be answered in due time, which meant after we were husband and wife. Then I thought back to how Ben Stone had threatened me and what my life would be like if I didn't go through with this. I really had no choice. The tabloids alone almost killed me. Looking at myself, I knew I had to do this. I could do this. I wasn't expecting a limo, but I got one. Garrison arrived exactly on time. I was nervous as I heard my mother make small talk with him in the living room. I was wearing the dress he bought. It was an ivory-colored lace dress with an off-shoulder style. It was simple but elegant. He also sent pearl earrings and a necklace. I tugged on the dress one more time and then came out of my room. I heard my mother's giggles as I descended down the stairs. The first thing that came into view was my husband-to-be. He was dressed in a black suit with a red tie. His dark hair was brushed back neatly, and his tan skin glowed. The moment his eyes met mine, I stopped breathing. How was it possible that he could do that to me? I barely knew him. A smile formed on his face as he walked around my mother and came to stand at the foot of the stairs. He extended his hand out and I took it. And when I came down the stairs, he pulled me to him and his eyes looked me over, pleased. Sweetheart, you have made me the happiest man alive. His words sunk in and I blushed. Thank you. Come on, the judge is waiting. The judge, Honorable David Great, was an older gentleman in his late 50s with soft blue eyes. He stood the same height as Garrison, and I was speechless when the two conversed like old friends. He recited the sacred vows, and it made my heart sink as I thought of when I had married Jake. It had meant something to me then, and it meant something now, although the difference was a big distance apart, and I wasn't sure if the vows meant anything to Garrison. But to my surprise, he pulled out a 2-carat diamond ring from his pocket and slipped it on my finger. He ran a finger over it and then pulled out another gold band. He handed it to me and I slipped it on his finger. When the judge gave us permission, he took my face and leaned down. He kissed me so gently that it felt like it was a whisper almost, and not even a kiss. When he pulled away, our eyes met, and the flutters I felt returned. My breath became shallow and uneven as I felt my heart race. Congratulations, the judge said, breaking the tension. I silently thanked him and stepped away from my husband. Garrison shook hands with the judge and declined his offer to join him for dinner. We signed our papers and then we walked out. This isn't how I pictured our wedding, Garrison said as we drove to meet his father at the hotel. I'm sorry. I looked away, suddenly feeling sad. It's all right. It's not as if any of this is real. He was quiet for a few moments. But it would have been nice to have given you a better wedding. Perhaps we can have another one once we've settled down. A thought entered my mind. Where would I live? Why, with me, of course. I meant where, as in the States. Garrison smiled. You can pick. I've got estates in England and here in the U.S. If you like, we can stay here so you can be closer to your home, although I'm sure my father will suggest we move to England to begin our affairs. Frowning, I asked, Affairs? Politics, he said. But I don't know anything about politics. You don't have to. All I need for you to do is to be beside me. I looked out the window as we neared his hotel. The affairs he spoke didn't ring any bells with me. I didn't know how to be a noble wife. Was I supposed to act a certain way? I guess I would have to learn. When we entered his room, his father was sitting in a chair smoking a cigar. He had changed into a pair of black slacks and a white button-down shirt. Garrison walked forward and shook hands with his father, who stood up. Then he turned to me and extended his hand. Good evening, Peyton. I'm Andrew Jacob Howard Remington. It is my greatest pleasure to meet the woman my son calls his wife, he said with the same accent Garrison had. Thank you. The honor is mine. She smiled. Garrison, give us a moment. Head downstairs and get yourself a drink. Garrison smiled and walked to kiss my cheek. He doesn't bite. I'll be back. When he left, I turned to find Andrew watching me. I was thankful for the dress Garrison bought me. I looked the part like a noble wife, I hoped. He gestured for me to sit and took the other seat across from me. He put out his cigar and crossed his legs at the ankle. I knew something had changed him when I spoke to him on the phone, Andrew began. It's not like Garrison to chase after a woman. So that's what he says. Andrew laughed. So you know of his history of women. I shook my head. I don't, actually. And in truth, I don't really care. You are a noble woman. Garrison spoke of a beauty who had tamed his heart. Apparently, you left him, and he wanted me to flip that island upside down to find you. This was news to me. I pretended it didn't penetrate the deepest part of me. It was a romantic fling on an exotic island. I'm sure once he's cleared his head, he'll get back on his feet. The women I've seen him with don't look like you. Well, I'm sure they're more exotic than I am. I'm very plain. No. Andrew shook his head. You've misunderstood me. You're so much more powerful in appearance than anyone I've seen before. It's no question as to why he wanted you. I blushed. He smiled, and then he leaned forward and touched his chin. I'm glad he chose you. As to what we discussed before, the photos have been burned, the press notified of their mistake, and the person has been held accountable. None of this will leak out ever again, and if it does, they'll have me to answer to. And to answer your question, I have not seen them, the photos. I let out the breath I was holding. Thank you for everything you've done. I can't thank you enough. Thank me by being a good wife to my son. He deserves happiness. I want you to visit England after you've settled down. I would like the staff to know you. I nodded. It can be arranged. He stood up and walked to me. He gave me a soft kiss on the cheek. It was lovely meeting you. I'll send Garrison up. The water was hot and welcoming as I stood underneath the shower. After a long day, I needed this. I felt as if my world had been shattered and was now being pieced back together. I wasn't sure where I was headed, but I wasn't going to be scared of it. Drake had taught me a lot when he left. He taught me I could depend on myself. The ring glittered on my hand, and a feeling of warmth crept across me. He was really a special man. If only he knew I loved him. He might have run if he had known. He said he cared about me, which was a whole other story. Would I fit into his life? Would I make a good, noble wife? Reaching over, I turned the water off and opened the door to find Garrison staring at me. I shut the shower door and covered myself with my hands. How long had he been standing there? You know, I've seen you naked before, he said. I know you have, but I wasn't expecting to see you. He shoved the door open and smiled at me. Hello, wife. You look amazing. I have to say I love the way the water decorates your skin, but I much prefer if there were my hands on you. I reached past him and grabbed the towel, wrapping it around me, but he wrapped his arms around me before I could run off. I felt his nose run along my shoulder and neck, making my knees weak. His fingers were tugging at the corners of the towel, trying to loosen it. My mind flashed with red flags of warning. This marriage was one of convenience, so it meant I couldn't perform the duties of a wife. I pried his fingers away and pulled away from him. We can't make love. Like bloody hell we can't, he whispered. I put my hands up. Look, this isn't a real marriage. You and I are not in love. So if we want to do this for the sake of me not being scandalized in the public, we can't consummate this. He laughed. We've already consummated our relationship, darling. I got all the paperwork done and now it's time to close the deal. Come here. When he tried to reach for me, I pulled away. His eyes darkened and he stepped quickly toward me, trapping me with his arms as he pulled me in. I needed him. I did, but I couldn't let it cloud my thoughts. Garrison, please don't do this. I need my head clear if I'm going to be making these decisions. You don't love me. I've suffered enough with one loveless marriage. I can't do another. His eyes softened and his grip loosened. Do you honestly think I would be like your ex-husband? I don't know. Would you? He tilted my chin up. No. As much as I want you, I'll prove to you that I can do what you ask of me because I care. I promise I won't touch you until you beg me to. And believe me, darling, beg you shall. I knew he was telling the truth. I knew how my body responded to his touch. I knew how it would betray me. He smiled at me, knowing what was going through my mind. He took one more look at me and walked out. I let out the breath I'd been holding and suddenly felt exhausted. This wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. I thought I could get away with just being his wife and not actually letting these feelings interfere. The first chance I get, and I was already in deep trouble. I heard the door open again and his footsteps coming in. I straightened and tightened the towel. He appeared with a bag. "I had some clothes sent for you. I doubt you'd want to wear the wedding dress on the ride home," Garrison said. I frowned. "But I haven't packed yet." "I sent someone over to do all the packing. Your house will remain kept for by my people. Your mother can visit us when she likes." My throat went dry. "Will I get to say goodbye to my mother?" "I'm sorry, darling, but not tonight. She'll be visiting soon, I promise." "Get dressed. We've got a long drive ahead." "Where are we going?" His eyes sparkled and he smiled. "We're going home." Thank you so much for tuning in. Please catch part 4 in the next episode.